So first of all, I'll give you a quick intro about myself. So myself, Praveen, and I'm the co-founder of PipeRocket Digital. We take care of all the paid marketing and SEO for all the B2B SaaS companies right now. Currently, we have 30 plus clients in our portfolio. Some of the major brands like Storylane, Spenflow, DevRev, all these companies have been associated with us for more than 18 months. So that's a quick intro about ourselves. And the reason why we started the growth show, especially from PipeRocket, is see, all these years I've been into executional end, and I've been consuming a lot of content in the market, and we can easily identify who are actually executing and actually showing the real results in the system. So that's the best part about being an executioner for the last 10 years. And having said that, I wanted to make sure that the guests we are bringing into the show who have actually done that multiple times, especially scaling brands to the next level. So while thinking of that, there is none other than Deepan calling into the system, where I was privileged to tell that I've been associated with Just Call for 2 years, and I've been working with him closely as a growth marketing manager over there. And Deepan was heading the growth marketing at Just Call, scaling from 10 million to 30 million, completely aware 60 to 70% or more than comes from the inbound marketing journey itself. So proud enough to have him on board, none other than, but yeah, over to you, Deepan.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Praveen. Thanks for having me on the Growth Show as your first speaker. Hello, everyone. I know it's the middle of a work week for a lot of you. So keeping that in mind, we will get started ASAP. And a little bit of intro. I head the growth marketing at SaaS Labs. SaaS Labs is our parent company. And under SaaS Labs, we have multiple SaaS products. And the most popular of all the products that we have goes by the name Just Call. Just Call is a cloud telephony software. The company where I had a privilege of growing the brand to the scale it is today. Whatever we are going to share, I am going to share. It's everything that we have tried, battle tested, continues to work, mistakes that we have made, so that none of you don't have to repeat that, in your growth journey. There is a reason that, we have called out specifically. I mean, even though I've seen much bigger scale than 10 million, but we see almost about 97 to 98% of SaaS companies struggle to get past this particular mark, the $1 million to 10 million, right? It's a massive shift. They say that once you go past 10 million, you will figure it out yourself, right? And of course, both Praveen and I, we come from strong performance marketing execution background. So even though the story is going to be the mistakes that you should not be making from 1 million to 10 million, a lot of examples that we're going to be sharing will revolve around performance marketing, because that's the nature of who we are. Almost 60-70% of our successes all the time have come through performance marketing. So with that, without further ado, I'm going to get started. If you do have the flexibility to chat with any questions that you may have, please drop it. At the end of the show, we'll probably have 5-10 minutes, to address your questions. All right. With that, let me get started. If you are in this journey, and I'm guessing, you might be a marketer working for a SaaS brand, or it could be a founder, you could be head of marketing, you could be a freelancer, or you could be an agency, trying to serve a SaaS customer, right? If you are one of those brands, you're likely facing these challenges. You could be figuring out ways, to go from founder-led sales to scalable processes. You might be thinking yes or no, how much to spend on performance marketing. You might be worried about your burn rate, and you're still responsible for your growth targets. You're probably trying to do too many things at once. You're probably contemplating hiring a VP of marketing or sales from the US, if your GTM is US, or in India, you're probably trying to hire a VP of marketing or sales with an assumption that this person is going to come and solve all the GTM problems that you may have, right? You might probably also be struggling to standardize sales, product, ops processes. These are challenges, that typically it exists in the companies that are in this stages, or it could potentially exist for much larger companies as well, right? With that, I'm going to share a lot of tactical examples mistakes that we made, things that we have learned. Growing Just Call, the size of the brand it is. Just Call also happens to be the first Indian tech brand to be featured by, I think, with Google. It's one of the most recognized softwares. In fact, it was conferred with one of the top 100 softwares in the world, of all softwares, right? So it's a proud recognition to have. So everything that I'm going to be sharing from here will be in the context of Just Call, which is a cloud telephony software for simplicity's sake. It can do a lot more, but for all of us to be on the same page, I'm going to call Just Call today as a cloud telephony software that can help businesses make phone calls. Okay, that I'm going to stick to that definition. So these are typical challenges that you would have, from a marketing or a performance marketing perspective. There is not enough dearth of channels that we can utilize, right? Be it LinkedIn, Google. Within Google, there are multiple inventories. Within LinkedIn, there are multiple types. There are different ABM vendors. There is YouTube. There is organic search. There are plenty of channels out there, right? There is no dearth of channels per se to generate a lead, to acquire a customer, right? But as you have hit your 1 million mark and you're trying to scale to the next growth path, right? You're very likely to be dealing with these challenges that we had a while ago, which is you might be dealing with the high volume of junk leads, because you might have gotten funding or you might have gotten some encouragement from your team to spend a little more and to get more from a channel. So whenever you're in that position, you're likely to get a lot of junk leads, a lot of low quality leads, which your sales team keeps complaining about, a lot of low intent leads, which again, your sales team could be complaining about. You could be getting a lot of leads that might want a portion of your product and not the entire platform that you may have to offer. You are a business that is catering to small customers, even though you might be successful in acquiring customers, but these customers will end up churning very quickly. Your quality of revenue, we usually measure quality of revenue in terms of NRR, net retention rate. That can possibly be taking a hit, especially when you're trying to grow really fast. And these are typical challenges for most SaaS companies that are growing from a $1 million to $10 million range, right? To give you an idea, I think this is the gist of everything that we have learned in terms of channels that you need to be investing in early. These are tried, battle-tested, proven channels that is going to continue to work, not just today, at least for the next 10, 15 years, unless the media consumption habits of all of us changes, right? Your branded traffic, organic search, paid social, affiliates, review aggregator platforms like your G2, Software Advice, Captra, influencers that you have relationship with, content partnerships, technology partnerships, channel partnerships, right? All of these channels are absolutely valid in terms of growing a SaaS business. It's that many organizations do not get the confidence to invest. Now, what I mean by confidence to invest is, for example, when it comes to something like Google Ads or LinkedIn Ads, it's quite simple to put more money, right? But the channels that you're seeing on the slides is not necessarily money driven. Some of that is relationship driven. Some of that is effort driven. Some of that is a long-term play. Some of that will generate results after a long, long time of work. So these channels are not necessarily an input versus output channel. Each of these channels requires a different mindset and a different playbook to work. For example, technology partnerships, right? To give you an idea, most of our early traction for Just Call came from technology partnerships. Without spending a single penny on advertising, without getting a single visitors organically that is non-brand. Okay. If you are an early brand, I would advise you to build really strong technology partnerships. Now, what I mean by that is, from my product perspective, we integrate with CRMs, we integrate with business tools, we integrate with help desk, right? Similarly, as a SaaS product, you're likely to be potentially integrating with a lot of other softwares out there. That is what I refer as technology partnerships. Especially if you're integrating with slightly larger company than yours, they're going to be referring a lot of customers back to you as long as there is a strong use case fit when the two softwares work together, right? This is an underrated channel, but it takes a lot of time, effort, and relationships to make that channel work. But once you figure that channel out, it's going to be one of your highly profitable channels, just like organic search, right? The rest of it, I'm guessing you have a reasonable enough understanding, so I don't really have to explain each of those channels better. But the thing is, you might be thinking whether something works or not in your favor. It works, as simple as that. It's just that to what extent it can work, it can depend upon the size of the category that you're operating in, the size of the demand that you have, the type of the brand awareness that you have, depending upon where you stand in your category of things, and how important is that pain point that the customer needs solving, right? All of us, we want to grow very early, but can we all grow like ChatGPT? We can't. ChatGPT operates in a much bigger market. My mom have started using ChatGPT. Now you can imagine what kind of a software is this, right? To be comparing, I wouldn't say an average or a normal product, right? It's unreasonable to be comparing any software to the likes of ChatGPT, to the likes of, let's say, Lovable. That has grown massively. That has grown to $100 million, $200 million ARR in no time, right? It's just unreasonable to be making those comparisons. But whatever the type of business that you are, whichever SaaS you are in, whichever verticals and markets that you're serving to, most of the channels that you're seeing on this slide will make absolute sense, and you should be investing early in these channels. And that's lesson number one, right? Lesson number two is to invest in the right tech and infrastructure purely from a marketing perspective, right? Many of the times what we would do as marketers and marketing teams, you might think that, hey, I can just survive with a few landing pages and an analytics platform and add dashboards, right? I'll run Google Ads, I'll track everything on GA4, which is a free software, and I have my website. Let me do everything between these, right? Which can be okay when you're early, right? But as you're growing, you'll have multiple challenges, especially with micro conversion tracking, attribution, different channels, fighting within each other. As politics emerge within your companies, you'll have plenty of those challenges, especially in the 1 to 10 million growth area, right? So you should be investing in revenue ops early. You should be investing in a high quality CRM or a marketing automation platform. My preference is HubSpot, where if you think there is an equivalent alternative to HubSpot, you can go ahead and do it. Companies use Salesforce. Some of the companies use Freshworks, right? So the idea is to have a good foundation of revenue operation engine, which is a combination of your appointment booking platform, which is a combination of website, the forms that you use, the CRM, the analytics platform that you use, and the reporting platform, right? If you are a PLG company, product analytics, it's something that you should invest in early. It can be expensive, but it's worth that investment. A data warehouse where all of your raw data coming from different systems, even if you're using 50 different softwares, you would need all of that data to flow into a warehouse. So you should be investing into a data warehouse. You need a customer data platform, so that you can start getting a unified view of the customer. Then, of course, reporting platforms, business intelligence dashboard, like a Power BI, Tableau, or a data box. You should be investing into these early. You should not be waiting to hit your 15 million, 20 million, and then I will go ahead and do it. It will be too late. Whereas if you start investing early into some of this, you will make much more rapid progress compared to the other companies that did not make this investment. Okay. Here comes the brutal truth. I'm going to jump into marketing. The stuff that we have spoken so far is from a business perspective, from a SaaS business perspective. But let us jump specifically into marketing now, right? Do we need all the leads? Companies with no leads, generating a lead is a problem, but the company that can generate a lead easily, it becomes a completely different problem altogether, right? A lead that is coming through, let's say, a checklist, a lead that is coming through an ebook, a lead that is coming through a webinar, in my opinion, they're not leads, okay? They're just inquiries, or they are people who just expressed interest in receiving information that is not necessarily business critical, right? Somebody filling up an ebook, filling up a form to receive an ebook, somebody joining a webinar, very rarely they will have the intent to buy. So if you start treating all of the leads, if you start passing all of the leads to your sales counterparts, right, they will not be able to convert. Let's be honest and frank about it. Very rarely, there is a stat that says that less than 1% of all the ebook downloaders will ever become your customers. That less than 1% is what? Is 0.1%, 0.2%, or 0.001? It's very less. I have never seen in my life that you attracted somebody through an ebook and they ended up becoming a customer. There could be, I'm not denying, there could be 1 or 2 customers here and there, but it's because they were in the buying cycle and they found your value proposition strong. They found you better than the competitors, and that's why they bought your product, and not necessarily because you shared an interesting ebook, right? So that's the whole idea. Not every lead is created equal. Not every channel can create a lead with similar intent. And if you keep on thinking as a marketer, if you keep on thinking all of that is a lead and I'm passing it to sales, my sales is not doing a good job in converting them, you are not going to survive as a marketer. Your sales is not going to be happy about it. Nobody is going to be happy in this journey, right? And we also talk about this, what is this really perfect attribution model, right? I'll speak about it, and we have a slide specifically for that. Uh, is your sales team, the final part, is your sales, the sellers, who are actually selling the product, are they even qualified to have a conversation with the buyer? I've had instances number of times where if the prospect is not really ready to buy, the seller on the other side can't really have a conversation with that prospect, right? And especially in younger companies, especially if you're 1 million, 2 million, lesser than 1 million kind of a company, you're unlikely to attract real good sales talent. You will have to operate with mediocre sales talent, right? And the mediocre sales talent, more often than not, it can actually paint a picture about you're not doing a good job as a marketer, right? So that's important to know. There is something that you may not be able to fix directly, right? But it's not something that you need to be worried about too much as well, as long as you're able to paint the right story to your head of marketing or the founder, right? Okay, with that, I'll get into some of the hot takes or the strong learnings that I've had, right? And it's the line that you're seeing on the slide right now is sort of connected to the slide, the previous slide. I think it is a curse for all of us marketers, to be believing that the prospect is always in market, which means somebody filling up my LinkedIn lead gen form, or somebody downloading my ebook, somebody expressing interest to webinar. We think they are buyers. They're not. Okay. And there is a stat that less than 3% of all of your market is in the buying cycle, and it is largely true. Okay. Not everybody in your target market, just because you have a list of accounts that can be potentially your customers, doesn't mean they're all having the intent to buy, even if they fill up the form. Okay. So I think it is a curse for a marketer to believe that every lead has the intent to buy. It's not. And hence I say that, all of us as marketers, we need to have tighter definition of what we call as a lead. Subscriber, a content subscriber is not a lead. A webinar attendee is not a lead, right? If they express intent to buy in some form, for example, if they're asking for your pricing, if they are booking some time on your calendar, if they're trying out your product and they fit the ICP criteria, some of these signals, could be considered as good leads. But anything else, in my opinion, they cannot be considered as leads. They can be good data, good email IDs, which you can nurture over a period of time. And whenever they raise the hand, they might be ready to buy, but the rest of the time, they're just not. Yeah. The second most important learning that I've had is micro conversion action tracking. Now, what I mean by that is, if you're heavy on ads, LinkedIn ads per se, you might be doing two things. Either you are driving traffic away from your LinkedIn to your landing page to generate an inquiry, or you're using native lead gen forms to create a lead, right? And the thing is, it's not necessarily an intent to buy. Okay. Similarly, people, you could be running Google ads, and people could be coming through if you have a free trial in the product. Just because somebody expressed interest to try your product doesn't mean that they're a customer. They're going to be becoming a customer, right? I'm sure you would have plenty of that. And most of us, from a business perspective, we'd be tracking only high-level metrics. For example, you'd probably be tracking leads, MQL, SQL, opportunity, and then conversions, which is actual customers and revenue. This is how the typical funnel looks like. Even in terms of conversion actions, you're likely to be tracking these key metrics, right? Which is great. There's nothing wrong with it. But there could be a lot of other nuanced way of tracking. For example, if you just take the sign up page alone, right? Let's say if you're a PLG company, you're offering a free trial, and if sign up is a strong intent for somebody to buy a product, it is not just enough to track the signups. It is important to know the number of people entering the landing page, from which geography, from which device, right? And from which sources, and from which pages. Just from one sign-up page, right? This generally we would say that my sign-up page received 2,000 in monthly traffic, right? That doesn't mean anything. What is the intent of this traffic? Did they come from Google, a high intent channel? Did they come from a social media viral post, which could be a low intent channel? Did they come organically through word of mouth, by looking at your website directly? The intent of the traffic, the page where they landed, the source of the traffic, all of that matters. All of that goes into that 2,000 monthly visitors. The curse of the marketer is again thinking that all the 2,000 visitors will behave the same way because they have all landed on the sign-up page, right? So the key is to understand the micro nuances that go into a specific page, especially if it is a high intent page like a sign up page or a book a demo page or a contact us page, right? This is how our the conversion tracking look like. For example, we have two different motions, PLG and SLG. If it is a PLG, we track signups, verified signups, the number of people attempting to start the trial, the number of people using specific functionalities of the product, the number of people becoming customers, how does the 3-month retention look like, and what is the LTV looking like, right? Similarly, for sales, there are different stages, MQL, demo, sales qualified lead, early stage of, late stage of, and deal value, higher value deals, lower value deals, right? It's important to have conversion actions at every stage, and your system needs to have the ability to pass this back to your advertising engine, be it LinkedIn or Google. Most of us, the conversion actions, I've audited so many accounts in my life. You would just have a lead as a conversion action, right? Okay, somebody filling up a form is a lead, and that's a conversion action. That's all I need to optimize for. You could have gotten away with that 4-5 years ago, not anymore, right? Because as marketers, we are not just responsible for leads, we are responsible for pipeline, we are responsible for revenue, and hence it's important for you to get nuanced conversion actions and have that flexibility to pass it back. For example, if you have a system like HubSpot, you should be able to create different lead stages, and you can pass that lead stage back to Google Ads as a conversion action. And while you're setting up a campaign, you have two different ways. You can set up a primary conversion action and secondary, and you could choose any of it, right? But the mistake again that most of us do is all of us want customers, all of us want high value customers. What if I just go to Google or go to LinkedIn and say I need only this? That's very wrong way of doing it. That's what I call as going for the kill. Going for the kill is not a good idea. It has to be a gradual progress. For example, for the stage that I am in today, I can actually optimize for customers. I can actually optimize for higher deal value. I can optimize for visitors who can potentially have a greater retention value. But this is after us, doing a lot of heavy lifting on data, passing back to Google, LinkedIn for almost about 3 to 4 years, right? But if you're in early stages, it's good for you to optimize for signups or a verified signup. It's good for you to be optimistic for an MQL or a demo. And as you collect more data, your conversion action can have its own evolution. And this is one of the biggest learnings. And Praveen, who introduced me on this call, who's the founder of PipeRocket, we worked with this together. There's a lot of challenge, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of zigzags, but we eventually got it right. Cool. The next step is tapping into competitors, right? There are two different ways to do it. Of course, you can bid on the competitor's name on Google, or you can actually get discovered organically as well, right? And we've had a lot of success with both bidding on the competitor's brand name and, of course, organically getting discovered for, when somebody's looking for competitors for alternatives. The key, again, the mistake that we will probably do we will probably pick up only the top 2 or 3 competitors. But there could be a lot of different companies that is achieving the same objectives in a different way. You might not be considering them as competitors, but your customers might, right? The easiest way to know the competitors is by listening to sales calls, right? And you don't even have to listen to sales calls anymore. You can have transcripts, you can have it summarized, and you can have it come to your Slack channel, right? Technology, AI workflows have made it a lot more easier for us to be listening to sales conversations. As you're listening to sales, you will have customers talking about how are they solving different problems, and which software, which application they're using to solve that problem, and they become your competitors, not necessarily your head-on competitors. That usually gets discussed in your business meetings. Okay. Here is another strong learning that we have had. You should not leave any opportunity to capture the customer info, right? It's not easy to get visitors, right? With higher competition, with Google eating into the organic traffic that we're getting today, right? With PPC costs going up and up, LinkedIn costs going up and up, everything has become so expensive. Getting a visitor is a tough job. It's not easy, right? It's going to be expensive or a lot of effort, or you need a really good product that has a lot of word of mouth, right? Instead, what you could do as a marketer is have Easter eggs on your website, which is different ways of collecting customer info. It could be your intercom. It could be a little application that you build, people could play around with. It could be an interactive demo, right? It could be a simple form. For example, if you look at the form example that I have here, I can have a long ass form to collect all the details, but it would turn away a lot of visitors. So the first step is to have just give your email ID and make it look like you're going to get started, and then have progressive forms. Progressive forms have always shown us higher results compared to us showing a really large form upfront to people, because people will have that hesitation. Do I need to do it now? Can I do it tomorrow? And by the time they would have forgotten who you are, right? So as a marketer, as the costs are going up, the only thing that we can do better is how do I place different Easter eggs? Because somebody, if you say book a demo, right? It's a really strong call to action. And it's a commitment from somebody, to be sharing that 30 minutes or 1 hour with you. It's obviously the most interesting visitor that you can have, the most interesting lead that you can have. But if you only have that as a call to action, right, you will miss out on a lot of leads. Your conversion rates are always going to be poorer. So have a lot of Easter eggs, use something like, for example, this screenshot that you see here is a one-click Google sign-in. That has actually ended up increasing a lot of our conversion rates. Progressive forms, having a contact us page, having a book a demo page, having interactive demo, chat. And of course, we should not, as a SaaS company, we should not behave like the travel companies out there, which has been throwing a lot of pop-ups. You need to have a good balance between UX and how you are collecting the contact details of the prospects. Okay. Continuing from the previous one, going for the kill is never a good idea. All of us want high-paying customers at the lowest cost of acquisition. Each of your campaigns and each of the campaigns within specific geographies, you can optimize for a different conversion action, right? For example, we have really good brand awareness in the US, but not as much in UK and Australia, right? If I think that I'm going to have a one-size standard fit-all approach, it's not going to work. There are different campaigns and different conversion actions, different level of metrics that work within geographies, within sub-geographies. If I treat all of them in the same way, just like how I treat my primary market, I'm not going to have success, right? The multi-touch attribution model, which most of the people claim it is fantastic, it's actually fundamentally flawed. There is nothing called multi-touch attribution model except for what the CRM vendors sell you, or the attribution platforms, right? Because there is no way for any technology to track the entire digital footprint of the user, right? They can only track accurately where you have possibly used UTM parameters, and if they're able to catch it, and if the user haven't disabled the cookies, right? There is just so much confusion that exists today that is nearly impossible for any technology to track all the digital footprint of the user, right? So it is absolutely waste of time to be arguing about attribution internally, especially if you have different teams within marketing, between marketing and sales. If your sales is doing outbound, it's just a done and dusted topic. It's not a topic where they should be spending time at all. The attribution that works the best for us so far, and the least amount of arguments that we have had, is the first touch attribution. The channel that brings in the customer for the first time, brings in the lead for the first time, brings in the visitor for the first time, gets most of the credit. Because if you look at multi-touch, it's not going to paint the whole picture. If you're going to go for last click attribution, it is going to ignore 90% of the buyer journey. So it's just a flawed way of measuring marketing. Okay. Another biggest learning that we have had is the brand search campaigns, especially if your Google reps will obviously continue to force you to spend more on protecting your brand, and your competition is taking away your brand and all of that. We used to spend a ton of money, Praveen, if you recall. Almost about 20% of our budget used to go into protecting our brand clicks, with the fear of FOMO, that, I might lose my own potential leads and customers to competitors, right? You should just, take it with a pinch of salt, the recommendations that is coming from Google, both the automated recommendations that you get in dashboard, plus the recommendations that you get from your Google reps. You are responsible for the results, not them. In fact, the people who are advising you, right, they're salespeople. They have quota. They will get you to spend. And I'm not blaming them, or I'm not trying to put them down, right? It's just that their KPIs are different from yours. So take the advice with a pinch of salt. Sometimes advice can be good, but you have to use your own judgment in terms of where I'm going to be spending the money. But spending on brand, please don't do that. It's not worth it. Okay. You might probably have like 2% of your budget, trying to protect brand click, but not 20-30% of your budget. Okay. And Google doesn't know B2B enough. Unlike LinkedIn, Google just does not know. It does not have the data. It does not have the intelligence to know the type of company, industry, revenue, or the nature of the visitor. It just doesn't have that platform like LinkedIn, right? So unlike LinkedIn, there is a level of optimization that you can do with Google. Even though Google would say that, pass back the lead, value, pass back the deal value, and all of that. There is a limit to how much Google can do. It's a great channel, fantastic channel, no denying about it. But what Google does is it not understands click behavior the best. Which click can potentially contribute to the goal in your mind, rather than Google can optimize for higher value deals. That's a fallacy. It's not something that you should believe in. Okay. And of course, target ROAS, target return on ad spend, just like e-commerce marketers. And e-commerce marketers are very well known for their ROAS. Every time I've spoken to them, the first question that they ask is, Deepan, how do I increase ROAS? And I think we are being asked the same questions, if I'm not wrong. What is the return on ad spends? It would be great to have $10 against every $1 spent, but it's often impossible, right? And I can always say that I'm going to run a target ROAS bidding strategy and I need 10x return, but your ads only won't run because Google knows that you're expecting too much. So the key is to find a reasonable between Google and I want the highest value customers and Google want my money, right? So what is the reasonable play that is in between that we can identify? For example, you could optimize for a specific people who are filling in a specific field and proceeding to the next stage. You can optimize for seat sizes. You can optimize for the product usage. You can optimize for the land value, or you can optimize for LTV, right? But this is all in the order of priority in terms of what you need to be optimizing for. Just saying Google, I need 10x return because some intelligent head of marketing is asking for that, it's not possible. It's just not possible. Okay, if only that is a story, every company in the world would be doing it, right? All right, the next, I think, hard learning is it's not always about earning $1. It is also about saving $1, right? Potentially, a lot of your existing campaigns are being clicked by your existing customers and frauds, right? If my guess is right, about 10 to 20% of their budget. So the key thing that for you to be doing is to keep the exclusion criteria, right? Be it your campaigns on Meta, be it the campaigns on LinkedIn, be it the campaigns on Google, the exclusion criteria, right? But the problem with Google is, for example, some of you, when you're selling to B2B, you'll have official email IDs of people, right? And Google does not recognize the official email ID of the people. By law, by legal guidelines, they cannot recognize even if they can, right? So the idea is identify a section of your website where your potential customers could be visiting. For example, a login page, right? Only your customers are likely to be visiting, right? So you can add that as a negative criteria instead of feeding email IDs. That is a good hack that we have found to exclude a lot of our existing customers, from clicking on our ad campaigns. And Looney is a tool that you might want to check. It's been our favorite tool in terms of fraud prevention. We have no affiliations with this tool, but we have plenty of good experience working with them. A good thing, a hot take, that intent data that most of the vendors sell out there is largely a scam, right? I have tried to make intent data work in a variety of ways. We have had, initially we thought the turnaround time is not good. Then we thought the messaging is not good. Then when we actually found some tangible proof that it is not necessarily a decision maker or a real people from a specific company visiting a website where they're buying intent, right? It could be a job seeker, it could be some intern doing the research, it could be anyone from a certain company that could be visiting your website for any reason, right? And the most of the vendors, sell this to you as an intent data, and you think that your sales is not doing a good job, or your marketing team is not really running campaigns, or the messaging is not working. Most of the intent data is largely a scam, including, I don't want to name people here, but who sell you the intent data. When it comes to intent data, where we have had the most success is the first party de-anonymized data. That's where your tools like Factors .ai comes in, which will help you de-anonymize your actual website visitors into potential companies, and then you can apply your filters to identify people within that company. Okay. Another thing that often keeps getting discussed is ABM. Big deal, right? ABM is just ordinary marketing rebranded. Okay, it's not some complex thing, but ABM is not a marketing campaign. Yeah, it's a very late realization that came into play. It's not just a matter of uploading a list of accounts into LinkedIn and running lead gen campaigns. That is just lead gen campaign. That is not ABM, right? It is actually a strategy that requires top-down influence, which means the CEO or the founder or the CRO, they have to enforce this alignment between marketing and sales, right? Which is you identify a territory, identify a bunch of customers, identify a lot of lookalike customers from your base, have a lot of good case studies, identify events, identify people who you can build a personal relationship with, and then run campaigns, then identify opportunities. Just a big, big game. That's how B2B businesses have always sold customers. B2B has always done ABM, right? Just because an ABM vendor like Six Sense or your Rollworks and all of these guys tell you ABM has to be done in a certain way doesn't mean it. ABM is how B2B marketing was always done. And you're not going to be selling it to random people like a consumer business, right? You always have a list of accounts that you can sell to. As long as you're attacking the accounts in different ways and your sales is equally invested, not just marketing, that's when an ABM can work. And I've seen ABM work really well in enterprise companies where inbound is not the norm of the game, right? Let's say if you're a B2B business that your average deal size is $1 million and above, you can't be easily running Google campaigns and LinkedIn campaigns to get customers that is going to be ready to buy, right? So you will have a very limited set of accounts, and then you need to have constant marketing initiatives to be at them, to be on top of their mind, to have strong relationships, and then you can eventually sell to them. The deal cycles could be 2 to 3 years, right? I'll give you one example. It's one of our largest deal ever. Sort of summarizing everything that we have spoken about, right? Especially, I know the qualification criteria in sales can be really, really strict, right? As to if you're generating a lead, it's easy for an SDR to come and say this lead is a shit lead, right? Or is it easy for an AE to come and say that this is a low value deal? How is it going to help me meet my quota, right? The sales mindset works that way, and I'm not blaming them. That's the way the system is designed, and they have to spend their time on the deal that is going to make their most money, right? And they're not going to be spending time on a webinar lead just because the marketing feels that it's a good lead. They're going to reach out to them, and if there is no intent to buy, they're going to drop the lead, right? But your job does not stop there. If you're generating 100 leads, only 2 or 3 leads, maybe expressing interest to buy immediately in the next 3-6 months, the remaining leads are not going to, right? Doesn't mean the marketing campaign that you ran is useless. So it's important to keep these folks engaged in your system in a really, really long time. And the case in point is this. I will not dive into details, but this is a company that has been in our system, that has taken a trial of the product several times, never spoke to sales, opened all of our marketing communications, attended webinars, downloaded checklists and all of that. And after 2 years, when they were ready, they became a customer, right? So it's not like the campaign that you ran was bad. Of course, the campaign that you have run 2 years back gathered some level of interest in bringing them into the ecosystem, right? So the key is not to conclude your campaigns quickly just because your sellers, they call it a bad quality lead, right? Okay. Cool. I think one last slide before we come to the summary. So your job as a marketer does not stop at generating a lead, and I think I've repeated this multiple times. Your job as a marketer is to consistently stay on top of mind of the prospect. Your job as a customer is to consistently educate them and not always sell. It'll always be good to have that landing page, get a lead through Google ad, and then becoming a customer. But life is not that easy, right? Understand, different your campaigns and your buyers, the behavior is going to be different with respect to different geographies. The way they buy your product is different. The way they look at their competition is different, right? So you need to really understand the nuances of operating in different markets, especially if you have a product that caters to different personas, different buyers, different buying committees. The behavior is going to be entirely different, and just running LinkedIn lead gen campaign is not going to get you there. Okay. And like I mentioned, investing in your infrastructure is really, really important. The RevOps infrastructure, be it your CRM, CDP, product analytics, billing engines. It's good to have a tighter engine that talks to each other so that you can get the right data that you need at any given point of time. That is going to be the superpower for a marketer, right? And final takeaways, we are almost at the end of this webinar. You have to capture the prospect info at any cost because getting a visitor is not easy. It's going to only get expensive. Use multi-enrichment engines. What I mean by that is you can use an Apollo behind, you can use a Clay behind. You can use any of that enrichment engines, Zoom info behind. so that you don't have to collect a lot of details about the prospect, and you just have an email ID and you're able to profile that customer without getting a lot of inputs from them, right? Ideally, use more than one. Do not just rely on one engine. For example, if you were to be using an Apollo, you'll probably have a 50% success rate. If you have Clay, you'll probably have a 65% success rate. We in my team, apart from this enrichment engines, we also have a couple of people who do the manual enrichment so that we ensure no leads go unenriched. What I mean by that is sometimes if you are a B2B company, but if you are selling to a B2C company, right? Many of these B2C companies, they do not care about their LinkedIn presence. Okay. And most of these enrichment engines, right? Apollo, Clay, and everyone, most of them, they scrape the data off LinkedIn. And if that company does not have a LinkedIn presence, they will call it as a zero employee company. Whereas in reality, they could be having a 500 employee company and they could be making $1 million in revenue, right? So it's not always good to depend on tech, especially when it comes to enrichment. Use the right infrastructure early, invest in a good CRM, invest in a good CDP very early. Even if you're on a 300K, 400K range, you should consider investing. Start building and segmenting audiences right from day one. Not everybody out there in the market, everybody in your target market is eager to open up their wallet and buy your product. It's important to keep them engaged. As a marketer, all you can do is show up. Just consistently show up. Like, the gym advice that you usually get, right? Whether you like it or not, show up, and eventually, before you know it, you'll have this perfect physique, right? That's exactly what you need to be doing as a marketer. Most importantly, your job does not stop at generating a lead. While the sales is talking, it's important to nurture the lead. Even if the lead is becoming a customer, you need to nurture the customer so that they become a high value customer. It's end-to-end journey of a customer is marketer's responsibility, right? And the final takeaway is, all I can say is, with everything that is surrounding us today as a community, that AI is going to eat our jobs and all of that. I look at AI as a force multiplier, right? Which means you could be a 1x marketer and AI can only go home to make a 10x marketer. I don't think if you are keeping up with what's happening out there, anybody is going to replace you. As long as your revenue accountable. If your revenue accountable, you become irreplaceable in the company. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to take any questions. Praveen, over to you.
Wow. Thank you, Deepan. You won't believe. So I think we have 95% of attendees still there with us. So which tells the intensity and the clarity which you have in this session. So which you clearly covered why intent data is a scam, and ABM, we have burned our fingers. And literally going from 0 to 10 was insane for us technically. And one of the important thing is the conversion action which we had. Like for each section, we built for PLG, same campaigns would be giving for SLG as well. So if they wanted to turn on SLG, I need more demos. Hey, how can we do that? So that we found a way in order to figure out stuff in terms of increasing the revenue part. You clearly covered every other aspect. So before going into Q&A, I would like to give a instruction for all the folks who are there in the system, where guys, you can directly, I'll just instruct you how to have the questionnaires done. So there is a three dot, you can see my screen, right? So there is a, Deepan, you're able to see the screen?
No, the screen is not properly visible. We're seeing the Google Meet window.
Okay, just a second. Is it now?
No, it's still the Google Meet window.
Yeah, Google Meet window only. You are able to see the mouse screen, right?
Yeah.
I will leave it to me. I will show it to that.
Yeah.
Folks, you can do this. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have to click the meeting icon here, you will have the Q&A segment. You can go and drop your questions here. Please do that. We'll give you a couple of minutes. We already have many questions. We're going to share it with Deepan now. Take a few minutes and drop your questions so that you'll be able to answer.
Yeah. So some of the questions I would like to address first. So the number one is how to handle attribution challenges from stakeholders as they try to track the ROI.
Yeah. Get them to agree to first touch. Simple. What has worked for me? Of course, the folks from Hockey Stack will tell you differently because they have to sell you the tool, right? I think the first touch works the best. As long as you have different channels, different people accountable for first touch, all the way till 100 million, I don't think it's a challenge at all. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And what to do when our competitors are bidding for our brand terms, because we also had the same concern.
Yeah. One thing that you could do is you could file a trademark for your brand name, which means your competitors can still bid on your brand name, but they won't be able to use your brand name in the ad. What happens when they don't use the brand name? The CTRs will go down. When the click-through goes down, their costs will go up, and eventually they stop running ads, right? Unless they are a Amazon type of competitor. So yeah, get a trademark. If you don't have a trademark, you'll have to deal with it. There is no other option.
Fantastic. And how performance marketer role changes for PLG and SLG?
Great question. Right? It actually changes a lot. The entire mindset changes. The choice of channel changes. The way you handle messaging, you understand the sales cycle, everything changes, right? In fact, if you ask me, a PLG marketer is almost like an e-com marketer because you can measure results very quickly, because somebody using a trial, utilizing the trial is very likely to become a customer, a portion of them. Whereas if you are an SLG company, the deal cycles could be longer. If you don't have a good sales team, you could be losing a lot of good deals, potentially a lot of customers, right? So the mindset is completely different. But in terms of the skill set, I would say it's largely the same. But in terms of mindset, it's two completely different mindsets. And it's not like you can't have, for example, if you take me and Praveen, I've known Praveen, right? We've been the same team for both the PLG and SLG engine of the company. Sometimes the channels are same, sometimes the channels are different. So in terms of skill, it's not really different. It's largely mindset, if you ask me, and your relationships with sales.
Yeah.
Beyond work.
Yeah. Okay. Which tool you use for de-anonymize the first-party data ICP?
I've used most of the tools available in the market. Currently, we use Factors, right? Because the way we have used even HubSpot de-anonymization. The unveil rate is a key metric for us, and Factors have been able to give us the highest unveil rate. So at the moment, we're using them for our de-anonymization.
Okay.
Yeah.
How performance marketer can use ChatGPT or other tools? Do you have any recommendations at this point of time?
Sure. One is, of course, your copy. You don't need a copywriter anymore. I wouldn't have said this a year ago, where I was still trying to play to the egos of copywriting, but I don't think you don't need performance marketing copies anymore. You should be able to do that yourself if you use the right prompts. You can do a lot of data analysis. Especially, I like playing around with data with ChatGPT, uploading hoops and hoops of Excel sheets, and then asking it to find patterns that you are not able to see, right? Beyond ChatGPT, there are a bunch of other things that you can do. You can combine your GA4 with Claude, right? And then you can ask Claude a lot of questions, right? Especially drop in traffic and from geography, drop in conversion rate from a sub geography, right? A campaign that used to work earlier but is not necessarily working for you anymore. Any channels that is emerging, there are plenty of things that it's not possible for us to be checking the dashboards directly, right? And what you can have is you can actually set up a prompt in such a way that you can just go to Claude and ask these questions regularly, and it is going to do the summary and give it back to you. If I'm not wrong, if you just go to Google, search for Claude and GA4 integration, you're going to find a lot of tutorial videos, and it's going to be really useful.
Yeah, very recently
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. The next one is, what role performance marketer play when it comes to nurturing for signups that is not converting as pipeline or a customer?
Fantastic question. The role changes in different types of companies. For example, if you're a slightly mature company, you will have somebody called life cycle marketer, whose job is to nurture the leads that are not ready to buy, right? But not many companies have it, including myself. I don't have a life cycle marketer today. So in some companies, there's a demand gen team, and within that, a content writer can take that role of a nurturing person, right? In many times, the performance marketer, you have to do it yourself. End of the day, you're responsible for return on the dollar that you have spent, right? And you cannot just say that my job is running ads. Your job is to get a customer who is going to open up the wallet and transact with you. And if that requires you to run a nurture campaign and you do not have the support to do it, you'll have to do it yourself. And with ChatGPT there, I don't think there is any excuse for us, including myself, to be not being able to run a nurture campaign. It's just so easy to run a basic nurture campaigns and keep people involved, engaged. Yeah. And when there's a time ready to buy, they're going to come and raise the hand and you can pass that lead back to sales.
True.
Yeah.
It's very true, because we are at the age where everyone is accountable for pipeline and revenue. So
and you
when
should
we are,
be. You should
Yeah.
be, right? That's why I said, you have to be revenue accountable and you don't have to worry about your future of the job.
100% align on that. Interesting one. As a B2B service company, we are finding it challenging to consistently generate qualified leads. Based on your experience, which channel should they prioritize?
If it's a high demand category, what I mean by high demand is people are actively looking for the service that you're offering on Google. You can run Google ads. There is no channel that is better than Google if there are enough people searching for the problem that you're solving, right? LinkedIn, the challenge is it can generate leads if you have a decent idea of who are your potential customers, but these leads may not be willing to buy instantly. Let's say for an example, if you want to make LinkedIn work, you need to have a good offer, right? Especially for service businesses. Let's say I do not know what kind of service you're offering. Let's say it's an ad agency, like Praveen has it, right? The SaaS marketing agency. You can offer a free audit of your Google Ads account. That's an offer, right? And who in their right sense would not want a free audit of their ad account done by experts, with over 10 years of experience, right? It's an easy win for you to have that conversation with them. And if you're able to show your expertise during that free audit, that becomes your selling call, right? Many of the times, we run the straightforward lead gen campaigns and inquiries, and these inquiries would never become customers. Very rarely 1%, 2% of the become customers. It's because your offer was not strong enough for the user to be investing time with you. So the key is to make the offer sound so good, genuinely valuable, for which the user would be paying for. The service businesses, it works fantastically. A free audit of something that you offer, it works really great if you want to make LinkedIn work. There are also a lot of comparative engines. There is Clutch, right? Which actually lists a lot of service providers. And there are companies that are similar to Clutch. I think there's something called Agency Reporter, I think, if you're an agency. So there are a lot of aggregators where you can go list yourself, get your customer reviews, and that also can generate a lot of visibility. SEO can generate a lot of visibility. Going to events where your potential customers could be generating a lot of visibility, right? Except for, in fact, the first slide where I showed you different channels, except for some of the channels like technology partnerships, everything else would work for a service business. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll keep this as a last one. I think there's one question which is very common, Deepan. I have limited budget and the CPCs are very high due to the large players. Any recommendation for them to start the campaigns, or any other recommendation would be helpful?
Cool. You don't always need position number one. That's my advice, right? So the reason CPCs are higher is because you want the position number one, right? If you give that objective and let Google take a call, right? This is all the budget that I have. Run the ads or I don't care. You'll get a few clicks here and there and some leads here and there. That's all you can do when your competitors are really, really high on spending and your CPCs are really high, right? I mean, people would say that improve your click-through rate, but there is only so much that you can improve the click-through rate and the ad quality score by improve your landing page. So the reasonable thing to do is you don't always need position number one. You should be okay with position number 3, position number 4. Instead of getting 10 clicks, you will get 2 clicks. You should make peace with that. Yeah.
Cool. I think we can wind it up because there are a lot of questions popping up. So what we can do is we'll definitely answer all these questions in our PipeRocket handle, the ones we feel interesting, and we'll keep things posted over there, folks. I think with that said, thank you, Deepan. I think this is definitely an insightful session. One thing is a biggest takeaway for everyone in the room is everyone needs to be accountable for revenue. There's no other go. I think you have said that in 2011, I believe. Don't chase vanity metrics,
Yeah.
CTR, engagement. No, don't go beyond that. You need to be accountable for pipeline and revenue. Till that, you shouldn't be sleeping, because that's a philosophy where we are also taking into our system, and that's how we are marching towards as well. Super excited for the upcoming days, and I'm glad that the special show is being hosted with you. And yeah, I believe that we can have a different session with you very soon as well, Deepan. So thank you once again.
Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for joining the session in the middle of the week. Great to see this attendance even at the end of the session. But thank you all for joining, and let's meet soon.
Yeah,
Bye.
cool. Thank you, folks. Bye.